First thing I want to do is define trust. Trust is defined, Webster's defined trust as a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. The synonyms for trust are confidence, belief, assurance, conviction, credence, reliance, bank on, count on, be sure. The long definition of that says confidence placed in a person by making that person a nominal owner of property to be held or used for the benefit of one or more or others. The verb of that is believe in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of, and trust it. Assign the responsibility for doing something. We, the city of Atlanta residents and the voters, have entrusted you with our votes. We have placed our trust in you to do what's right. I'm a Morehouse grad. Spike Lee is my classmate. He titled the movie, Do the Right Thing. I'm asking you to do the right thing. Now, I'm going to unpack each one of the comments of each one of the council members made. I'm going to start with Mr. Dickens. Yeah, it's a complicated transaction, and they're using the scare tactic to tell you that it's been vacant for 150 years. That's not true, because I'm a native Atlanta, and my grandfather worked at the terminal station for 42 years moving mail. He was the chief mail sorter. So that platform was already there before they tore it down and built the Richard B. Russell building. And if you're from Atlanta, you know that. Also, most of y'all may not even remember this. There used to be two train stations. Used to be the terminal station and the Union station over on the other side. So the Gulch has not always been empty. The Union station went north, the terminal station went south. Why? My great-grandmother used to catch it every summer to go see my cousin in Jacksonville. And I used to ride it with her too. So that's not true. That platform has been there before. It's nothing to build a platform. I do development. That's just engineering. And I'm going to give you an example. Philadelphia, Union Station. New York, Grand Central. All underground, all the train tracks. Don't tell me you can't build a platform. That's just concrete and pillars. That's all it is. Union Station, D.C., same thing. Chicago, Union Station, same thing. That doesn't play. Next thing. She talked about, Miss Cole talked about living wage. Well, you know, only way you can really get that is if you got government money in a project through Davis-Bacon. This is not a Davis-Bacon project, so that's not going to happen. You asking them to do something that they haven't even committed to. They made no commitment to nothing. So I'm going to run by that one just quick. Now, I'm going to unpack all of this. These guys have sat here, sounded good, they're well-educated, fine. None of it's true. I'm going to tell you why. Because the first guy said, and he offended me by this, he said, and I'm going to quote, when CIM takes possession and title of the land like it was a foregone conclusion. Everybody in here heard that, and you did too. It's recorded. I don't even have to say it. It's on tape. Next thing, 1.2 billion enterprise zone revenue bonus. You're talking about 30 years. You're going to tax the taxpayers that much for 30 years? Are you kidding me? I'll be 81 years old paying for something that a guy's going to walk off and make $4 billion. I said to you a week ago, and you all are too smart for that. You all can put together a group of Atlanta developers who are headquartered here, not just have satellite offices, headquartered here. You got Post Properties, you got Brockville, you got Purposeville. I mean, come on, man, for real. 53% of the debt we're going to take on for somebody to make $4 billion. The mayor says she wants one Atlanta, affordable housing fund. If you do the deal yourself, you'll make $4 billion if you sell it to somebody else. That's $1 billion for a housing fund, you got it right there. $1 billion for infrastructure and $2 more billion for anything else. And if you keep the whole deal, you got $5 billion. So you got more money to build out the Beltline, any kind of infrastructure you want. You said it yourself, Mr. Moore, you said it yourself. Now, I don't have time to unpack the rest of it, but I'm gonna go into the 10% for the equity piece when we talk about MBE. Now, I have a good friend who was friends with Reggie Lewis. And I don't know if you all even remember who Reggie Lewis was, but he did the TLC Beatrice deal where he made $1 billion. He sold off pieces of it. As a lawyer, he was an MBE lawyer. He did that for 20 years. What he did was show me that if you got a guy that's going to be an MBE partner in a deal, he's got to put up 1/3 of the capital. So let's say the deal is $700 million. All he's got to finance is 1/3 of that. There are not that many people who can do that. So who do you think the player's going to be? Probably CIM. You know, most people do business with people they're comfortable with. That's always the kicker. Probably Grant Hill. I'm just going to throw it out just like it is. Don't leave that alone. Public safety. Talking about paying getting $14 million over a 20-year payout. They're paying you on the back end. You got to expend the money first. Really? Really? Okay. Affordable housing. We say the median income in Atlanta is what, 45, 50,000? Let's say 45, I think that's right now. So if you're talking about that, and most of our people in these areas only earn 15,000. So if that's the case, then, and most people, the other people at 36, where are you going to get the other 21 for them to be able to afford the housing? Where's it going to come from? We have a problem in Atlanta. Our people don't have the skills. We talk about the employment side. Let's go to it. The employment side of it is this. Our people are uneducated, unskilled. So when they come building stuff, you're going to need semi-skilled to skilled labor. Our school system isn't even set up to do that. We got one school in Atlanta that has carpentry, Carver High School. How do I know? My ex-wife was a guidance counselor for 30 years. She works at the state. I had this conversation with her the last 2 days to just pick it apart and see. Okay. Lastly, we've entrusted you with our vote. All I'm going to say is do the right thing.
Thank you.
You said 2 minutes.
Oh, I thought you said.
No. It didn't set the clock. I have a timer. Okay, let me preside, okay? Next, Billy Freeman.
See you.
Billy Freeman, Jim Martin, Billy Freeman's kind of correct, followed by Jim Martin.
I missed the sign up.
You're here.
Okay.
Kind of way.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Billy Freeman Jr., President of Technique Concrete Construction and the President of the National Association of Minority Contractors. And I'm a high school graduate. I graduated from Walter F. George High School right here in Atlanta in 1985. And I don't know what this project could mean. The details the City Council has to work out. Some of the details I don't know. But what this thing could provide, not for me as a contractor and an Atlantan, but for the whole minority community, is unbelievable. I work here in this city all of my life, from the age of 13 years old at that airport. And I work for major companies, I've done private work all over the place, and it's easy for those companies to get that private work. But the city, it's nowhere in the country where a guy like me out of high school, a high school educated cement finisher, can take on, I have 141 W-2 high paid employees. I got guys make up to $160,000 for me. I have some truck drivers in my company who makes $28 an hour, and I make sure that they work every day. And and to say that you can't just, whatever details you guys have to work out, we have to work it out, because there are women in minority-owned firms who this could change everybody's lives. I've been on a lot of private stuff, and what I get sometimes is just what I get. I get scraps and leftovers. Until I got in the city of Atlanta, I've been provided the opportunity to grow my company, employ people, and take care of a lot. 140 people is a lot of people. All 140 of those people have families. I have a lot of weight on my shoulders, and when I took on the responsibility of being the president of the National Association of Minority Companies, my job is now to provide opportunities for other companies, women and minority owned, right here in this city. And for those who think that I don't want to get some details, if this thing is even close to what's on paper, it's a good deal for this entire city and a good deal for the entire minority community. And that's how I feel, because I've seen the good things work and the bad things work. I've seen when it goes right and it don't go right. This is a good deal. If you guys can get the details worked out, this is good for all the people here and all the city of Atlanta. Thank you.
All right, people, you get 2 minutes each. Let's try to be respectful because we have a long list. Jim Martin, followed by Lena Green.
You can't see?
Jim Martin.
I got him. I didn't get him.
Alina, is it Greer or Green?
No, you can pick. Okay. That'll work.
Randall Tinsley. Randall Tinsley. Bryson Barnes.
Good luck.
I'm good.
Thank you, sir. Larry, is it Peck?
I believe.
Thank you. Tim Turnbull.
I believe.
John Daly.
I believe.
Catherine Owen.
I would like to give it to Julie today.
Cherise Brown, can you give your time to Mr. Greg?
Yeah.
Okay. Nancy, is Jack
All
White.
the public comment? Thank you.
Is it Amy Lemmer? All right, Mr. Benet, you are up with 246 minutes.
Red light to go.
You got 10 people, Lee, you got 20 minutes.
Council members, it seems like maybe a couple of months ago, I came down here after the previous dog and pony show from the promoters of this scheme and said, you still don't have the price tag. I don't think you got the price tag yet. I'll give it to you, and then let me hand over the property tax part of that to the two council members, if somebody could take it, Mr. Westmoreland. So, the property tax revenue stream, and the only way to look at this is revenue streams that are going to be diverted. It's 942 million. So, in good faith, I had it at $1.080 billion. I was wrong. The millage rate, not all of it goes into the tax. So, I've adjusted that and scribbled it on all these sheets for you. 942 million of property taxes, and yes, that is a real diversion, because we've given you the independent report from Professor Dobbins, from Professor Bradbury, and Professor Boone and others, and Brian McGowan, who you remember, and they're all saying, yeah, of course, this is going to shift office buildings from being built elsewhere in town, which would pay taxes, to a place where they won't. So to the gentleman who just spoke, the head of the Contracting Association, I mean, I respect and understand what he's saying. There won't be any more office buildings built with this scheme than without it. Office buildings are built to accommodate employers. The employers are coming regardless of the Gulch. We just saw it with BlackRock, 1,000. We saw it with Salesforce expanding, several hundred. We saw it with Starbucks coming. They don't care about the Gulch. They care about the universities, the talent, the airport, the relatively good standard and cost of living in this town. That's what they're coming for. The Gulch is irrelevant. Those buildings are going to get built. The only question is, will they pay taxes or not? And those taxes are the only way that this city is going to get its act together, is going to start doing something sensible about affordable housing, is going to start to pay police and teachers properly so there isn't horrendous turnover, and so you have quality and reliability of those key services, firefighters and all the rest. You're going to start to provide the services that your constituents have been asking for years, and that you promised that you'd work on when you stood for election last November. You did not promise to divert $942 million of property taxes into a billionaire's development scheme in the Gulch. You didn't mention it, nor did the mayor. And there's a reason to that. You would not have been elected had you mentioned it. And you all know that. You all know that. Now, it's a huge amount of money. When you throw in what I estimate a reasonable $500 million of sales tax revenue, the numbers, that's in today's prices, that's the Minicap number turned into today's prices. No way, by the way, that it justifies a $1.25 billion bond. It's ridiculous. As Scott Truby reported, it shouldn't have really required an Emory professor to tell us that on $660 million of sales tax, you can't float $1.25 billion. You can't float 600. You can float, this guy said, 350 million. That's at a pretty low interest rate, so which is probably not the interest rate that CIM is planning to extract. But anyway, 350, not $1.2 billion. So good luck when that one goes belly up, right? And I'm not sure that any of us understands the full 700 pages and whether we are protected against that going belly up. It's a very bizarre thing. The only reason it's sitting there that I can see is that they keep wanting to say that the state is picking up most of the cost. It's nonsense. On my numbers, 942 of property taxes, 500 of sales taxes, that's at least 2/3 that city residents are picking up as opposed to the state. Now, you know, you maybe thought that the report of the Page Springstead folks, gave the boosters cover. Well, it doesn't, because the professors that we pulled together to give you a real independent review have told you, first of all, the Gulch really would cannibalize development from tax-paying parts of the town. That is the nub of this. That is why it's a total fabrication to say there'll be any more construction jobs from this thing, or that there'll be 35,000 permanent jobs. Those jobs are going to come or not come, regardless of the Gulch. We'll get them in places like Midtown, West Midtown, around the Beltline in Atlantic Station, in Buckhead, and where they want to be. So you've had that confirmation from several of these professors. You've been told it's a patent giveaway, it's fabulous, which is in return for next to nothing. You've been told by Brian McGowan this isn't an incentive. This should buy an equity position in the project. Of course, there's zero equity position being given to the city, the people who are paying for it. You've been told by Professor Bradbury, with a name like the Gulch, this project has the potential to live on in infamy as the example of misguided development policy. And by Dr. Boone, the Gulch proposal is the latest in a long line where a very narrow group of people and interests decide the city's priorities. As you know, when you're throwing $1.4 billion at something, 200 units of affordable housing is worse than an insult. For that, you could get 18,000 units at 8% AMI, 15 years. And indeed, this is billionaire welfare masquerading as caring for the least of these. And I think we should all feel a little revulsion at that. The deceptions of the pro-Gulch campaign are unacceptable. The pretense in the mayor's statement of last Tuesday that the public cost of the New Deal had been cut to $40 million was an exercise in bad faith, which in and of itself should result in throwing the whole deal out. They conned Fox 5, 11 Alive, and the Business Chronicle into reporting that nonsense, that the cost had dropped to $40 million. Nothing could be further from the truth, and of course, I think we all know that. How much bad faith does this deal have to exhibit before council shuts it down? I can't even remember what the bad faith was that I was complaining to you about last time I was here, but there has been a sequence of it. The West Side neighbourhoods, as Council Member Westmoreland so effectively revealed, lost big in this revised deal. The CIM billionaires scratched back 118 million of the 125 million that were destined for those neighbourhoods. Yes, over 118, that's $118 million from the neighbourhoods under this new deal. And it's escaped public attention, thanks to the misinformation campaign of the scheme's proponents. Why would any council member go for such a thing? Why would any West Side council member go for any such thing? Council member Bond was quoted in the paper as saying it was kind of a letdown. Kind of a letdown. 125 million vanishes down to 8 million. Kind of a letdown? Yeah, I think so. Look, this 700-page deal is a fee-hungry lawyer's dream. CIM and the mayor's legal team have been cooking it up for months, but without being able to hire your own high-priced, top-drawer lawyers to work on it for you, you can't possibly know what traps are hidden in it.
All right, your time is up, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Lewis? And Tony Muhammad.
There it is.
Here, oh, here.
Man, hotel.
Tell it.
I find it something that the ancestors would be upset with you carbonate people. And all you Caucasian, Mr. Westmoreland, Mr. Sherwood, we have a problem in the city, you know. Many of you drive in the areas of the West Side. Some of you drive in the areas that you know need help with economic empowerment. Let's simply speak about housing. In your area, when you come out this over street, you know we got a bunch of what I call modern day Negro living in big house. Cascade, Mr. Malcolm, New Hope Road, Danford Road, got lights on both sides, lamps, sidewalk with bricks on both sides, Manhattan, Cascade, and Martin Luther King. But who is the majority of people in the city? Women with children, make less than $15,000. And we talk about affordable housing. They can't even find them today. But what do you care, Miss Winslow, Miss Shelton? What do you care, Miss Overstreet? Your ancestors are crying. You got Martin Luther King. I heard one of our Caucasian ladies say, what would he be doing today?
Good question.
Arguing with you, Negroes, and you. But you know, it's sad, Mr. Shue, Mr. Westmoreland. 2018, don't you think we ought to have an opportunity to have a community that will have favorable housing, favorable streets, like what most of them we have in other areas of the city? And I have this choice place that you'd like to give benefit to, Mr. Archibald. So I am going to say, ancestors, as said.
Let's see, Ashley Spear wants to donate her time to Tanya Washington.
Tanya.
Tanya, I keep doing that. I apologize. Amari Foster?
If I can donate my time to Deborah Scott, please.
All right, Mrs. Scott, anyone else want to donate? Mrs. Scott.
I do. Courtney Cottage. Courtney Cottage.
Courtney. I see it.
You need some more time?
Ms. Scott?
Oh, great.
Let's see, 2, 4, 6 minutes, please, on the clock.
Plus mine? That's 8 minutes, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the shirt that I took off the students last week that were trying to come into city council. They coming from the mayor's office with these green shirts on, and I'm sure you heard the skirmish out in the hallway, but I was blocking the door and said that I would be willing to get arrested if they walked in with these shirts on given to them in the mayor's conference room by Eric Thomas. So the shirts are actually a statement from someone to you all. It says, Atlanta City Council must greenlight the Gulch. And so this was given to the students, and I'm offended because I was actually here and glad to be here on that day because we were celebrating Clark Atlanta University's 30th anniversary, and I'm a graduate of that first class. And they were from Clark Atlanta University. So I did call the president of the institution, and I hope that they will deal with that. The second thing is, last week we had a news conference talking about the independent review that 4 professors did, free of charge. And my question to the council is, have you read it? Have you taken into consideration that this was truly an independent review of the documents? Just leave that to your thinking. The other question I have is, when we say community benefits, I am a part of a national organization called Partnership for Working Families. As some of you will remember, we brought the term community benefit agreement to the city of Atlanta. First time it was used was in 2005 when we were fighting for it for the Beltline. If you look at the Beltline, if you look at the streetcar, if you look at the airport, every single development project we've done in the city have been overrun. So the numbers don't actually, at the beginning, are not the same numbers at the end. And so the fact that there are no guarantees that this project and these projects are going to stay in budget is a fact. The other thing we often hear is the highest and best use and the best way that they can look at these jobs. When you look at the Workforce Development Agency, AWDA, there always a clause in there that those companies would have to go through that agency. And so what they do is they go over to the agency and they say this is a job opening, and then they say these folks are not qualified, and they can check off the box that they tried. So when you give back $1.3 million of workforce investment funds, just last week, thank you so much for that, just last week, How should we believe that the same agency, along with other partners that have never put community in these jobs, that have never trained community for these jobs, how would we trust that?
No way.
If you have federal indictments still happening right now, how would we trust that what they say that they can't do and just take their word for it?
No way.
Why would we trust that? If we have council members that have been complicit in some of this mess, why would we trust it?
No way.
If you have a city council person that also was a part of the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, 2 jobs in one paycheck, 2 paychecks on one person, and then that person becomes mayor.
Tell it.
And then you have an attorney that represents 2 or 3 people in the deal. And then you have a development company, CIM, that in Los Angeles, DC, and New York have been called slumlords. And then you say, but this is the best deal and we need to fix the hole in the ground. Well, the hole that needs to be fixed is the hole in the soul of Atlanta's heart.
Amen.
That's the hole that needs to be fixed. The highest socioeconomic development, socioeconomic development disparities in the entire country is here in Atlanta. The homeless rate, gentrification. This is an opportunity to go over to the state and fix all those preemptions that don't allow you to do things in the city of Atlanta for your people. Use the money for those attorneys to go over there and fix that.
Tell
The
it.
fact that this meeting is going to happen the day before a national significant election, and I'm nonpartisan, but we did register 7,107 voters. And this does take time away from registering people to vote, getting them out to vote, getting rides to the polls for the people in West End. That this vote could possibly happen the day before that election is really a shame. So what I would say is,
Stand up.
as we look at where our priorities are, I want you to trust your heart, trust your constituents that weren't called to private meetings, that weren't called over to Friendship Baptist Church, that weren't called in the middle of the night to come to private meetings with the mayor and the developers.
Tell it.
You know, we look around this audience and we don't see certain people.
They've been bought.
Sometimes when you don't see certain people, that tells you something.
They sold.
And so when you look at the CIM website, have you looked at it?
Who it belong to?
The one that's connected to the City of Atlanta's website? When you look at who runs it, it's run by CIM out of New York. And it says in their business model, in their own website, you can Google it right now, Green Light the Gulch. But while you do Green Light the Gulch, go to Red Light the Gulch for the real truth. In that website, it says their business model is to come into urban blighted areas and gentrify them. So they're telling you what they do, what their business model is. We have to be smart people. We have to read. We are the talk of the country right now. Folks are asking if the home of Martin Luther King with black elected officials up and down, and thank you so much for the good ones, the other ones. But people are talking about why is the city doing this to their own people? And we can't explain it. It's some kind of sickness. We can't explain it. So we want to thank you for listening, not just to the community, but listening and pointing holes in the misinformation you were given today. And question every parcel of this deal, because as soon as you pass it, the fine print says they can start buying property right now. And if you all didn't know who DDA was, that's a problem, because they've been working on this deal for 3 years. If they're just coming to you at the 9th hour, that's a problem. If they've been working on it for 3 years, why don't you know about it? How come the city council had not passed papers to support this before? Is Kasim Reed in this deal? Do you know that he is or isn't? Has anyone asked that question? parking and red light the Gulch.
I'm going to continue to excuse
She
me.
got,
She had 8 minutes, Tim Fran, and all counted, 3 people, so you make it 4.
Yes.
I'd like to give my time to Tanya Washington.
And I'm going to say it correctly. Miss Tanya Washington.
Professor.
Professor Tanya.
do it.
J.D. Sorry.
JGLM. Don't speak LM. I'm so
You got 6 minutes. 8 minutes. You live.
So I am going to, and as a professor, grade this agreement, this press release for the amended agreement, because there's some things in here that I find problematic. So I will read, and when I grade papers, I comment on them because I want my students to know what they're doing well and what they're not doing well, where they may have overstated some facts or not explained something or left something out. So I'm going to read the press release and then I will comment. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms has negotiated significantly new terms with the CIM group to redevelop the currently underdeveloped Gulch property in the heart of downtown Atlanta, and I would add without community or city council input. So you all weren't consulted as part of the first deal, nor was the community, and now we have a second deal that they're bringing to you to tell you what has been decided without your input. So I'm just going to make a little note there. No input. As part of the new agreement, the maximum authorized TAD bond amount has been reduced from $625 million to $40 million. Mr. Julian Benet, I think, established that is a flat-out untruth, not even a mischaracterization. All we have done is substituted an initial payout for a pay-as-you-go. You're still paying $625 million. We're still leveraging our children's future in our public schools and money that could be used for other purposes. So that is highly misleading. Oh, I'm not going to grade it after I go through it. I want everybody to understand why it gets an F. If approved, the agreement would result in the transformation of 40 acres of underutilized land into office, residential, and retail space and add new infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, and city parks to downtown Atlanta, but this will be privately owned space and Atlanta will not own it.
Who owns it?
CIM. We can't have somebody else own the heart of the city. I'd rather have a hole in the ground. Our team has worked nonstop. Our team, I would question who's on the team, because it's not city council and it's not the community. So it's the team of the people who have been negotiating this all along without community and council input. Our team has worked nonstop over the last several months to structure a deal that would not just bring much needed development to the west side of downtown, but most importantly, would benefit communities throughout Atlanta. I think this is incredibly misleading, especially when the west side is losing $118 million. How can you say that this benefits the community? How can you say that? That's just wrong. Where's it go? Raymond. CIM.
Do it, Tony.
The new plan. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to miss this sentence. With the inclusion of millions of dollars toward affordable and workforce housing, affordable has multiple meanings, I am learning, right? Affordable for whom needs to be the question. Economic development and job training overseen by someone or an entity with questionable credibility in that area. This historic agreement is vastly different than any other negotiated by our city. Well, if transparency is what we're looking at, it is not vastly different. It looks very much like the deal that was negotiated with Turner Field, what we did with the stadium over Mercedes-Benz. This is what we did with Underground. You leave people out of the conversations, create a deal, and then tell them they will pass it and vote for it. And I hope you all don't fall for that. It is vastly different in terms of the scale and scope of the giveaway. But it's not vastly different in a good way. The new plan, which has been presented to Atlanta City Council for their review, but not sufficient time, right? Because we added 100 pages to a deal that was supposed to shave something off. And that doesn't make sense to me. But it includes a number of redefined terms which place more financial responsibility on the developer while still preserving over $150 million in previously non-existent public purpose initiatives focused on affordable housing, safety, and economic development. What we are giving them, subsidizing development that will benefit them, is not worth what we are getting back.
True.
And they can keep calling it community benefits, but the scale is out of proportion. Terms in the agreement shared with council today include CIM assuming all financial risk. Not true. We are taking a huge risk.
Every deal got a risk.
Let us have a market correction. Are we going to have half a platform? Who's going to buy something with half a platform though? As I've said before, people walked away from their homes and developers have walked away from deals like this when it was no longer financially beneficial for them to stay in the deal. They did their own cost-benefit analysis and whatever, all bets were off. CIM paying taxes in full, only receiving the benefit of the TAD. Mr. Benet addressed that. That is not true. Reducing the TAD bond proceeds available to CIM from $500 million to $32 million, with up to $8 million in bond proceeds available to the empowerment zone communities. This is making up for this, what they are calling this differential between the $625 million and the $40 million. All they did was shift the money. That doesn't make it less expensive for the citizens of Atlanta and for the city of Atlanta. My hand is tired.
Bring it on.
Got a minute?
All right, let me wrap this up. As I speak to affordable housing, Dan Emmergluck said that out of
We all tired, sick and tired.
the billions that we're spending on this deal, we should be able to provide 18,000 units of affordable housing, not 200.
How many?
18,000, not 200. This is abysmal. At an 80% AMI where you have an option to buy your way out of it, we're still going to have homeless people on the street.
That's right. What's the break?
And we're going to have more of them. And we're going to have more people who can't afford to live in the city of Atlanta, but we're going to have people living in luxury housing in the heart of our city.
Peachtree and Pound.
That can't be Atlanta.
Come on, wrap it up.
F for effort. F for content. And F for accuracy. We need to red light this thing. Do not let this mayor disrespect your authority as a co-equal branch of government. You have asked excellent questions, and you need answers to those questions. They don't tell you what CMI is willing to do. You tell them what you're willing to vote for. Yes. Red light the Gulch. Yeah.
Yes.
Good afternoon. I will be very brief. This is such a complicated project and it demands your utmost scrutiny, and I appreciate the questions, the difficult questions you've asked, and I expect that you will continue to do so, and I hope that you will. And I appreciate the voices from the community on many of these provisions, particularly the affordable housing provisions. But I'm here to speak to one small component of what is currently proposed, and that is that $28 million contribution from the developer. I hold up for you as a model the $50 million in Home First funds to address homelessness. The city's $25 million was matched with $25 million in philanthropic contributions for a $50 million fund. And that is governed with a public and private sector governance model. I only hold that up to you to see if that could be a model for this 28 million to be matched, to provide resources to match affordable housing needs citywide. There are critical needs citywide and great demand for resources. I only call that to your attention on that $20 million contribution. Thank you.
Yes. All right, thank you. Nathaniel Johnson. Italy. Is it spelled? I can't read this. Burke. Rob Jordan. Rob Jordan. All right.
These two. Do my
So
time.
far, you're at 6 minutes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, 6 minutes.
Are you ready for me, Councilor Marshall?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This gives me a chance to deliver the peroration that I know you've been dying to hear. Seriously, summing up, let's focus on what this outcry from the public is really about. And as many have commented, including members of the media, this has been an extraordinary coming together of folks from all walks of life in the city, age, race, income, occupation, and obviously district. Folks are united in being concerned at this deal. And the reason is it's so huge, and the public subsidy is so enormous, the diversion of funds from paying for our schools and public services is just enormous. So that's what the outcry is about. But at some level, the outcry is really, is this city to be run for the benefit of billionaires or for the benefit of residents and of taxpayers? And it is a watershed moment for the city. You know, this focus that we've had now on this deal for the last over 2 months means that the day-to-day failures, the Renew Atlanta things, the workforce development mess, but also the kind of chronic neglect of community needs. We continue to focus on the wrong thing with this massive deal. So it now is time for council members to stand up and be candid and to say, are you on the billionaire team or are you on your constituents team? I mean, yes, it's reductive. Yes, it's simple, but it is simple. Council clearly has the authority to walk away from a deal where the city's residents will only be burned. So enough postponing the vote. Vote next Monday.
No.
Please vote no. Thank you.
You like the Gulch? Is it Libby Stevie? John Lewis?
Yes, can I donate to
People want to speak, you know, that's good. I'll come back to you and think about it. John Lewis?
I've already ended my time.
Okay, thank you for that. Margie McLeod?
My time to go on security.
Okay. And now Ron Shakir is up.
Where's
I'll
on?
donate my time to him as well.
Okay.
All right.
Shakir, you have 6 minutes. And I mean 6 minutes.
Well, I want to be real careful, and Mark, that's the first thing I wanted to say, that I want to be careful.
Do it.
To Mr. Julian Point, he quoted somebody that Atlanta have a potential to be a laughing stock. To actually brand the name that has come out of a dark history where people who really didn't make that much compared to others have been a big part of holding this city together and working for it. And who have used this political power to attract people from all over the world and have done some outstanding things in the school system and its housing program. But in the face of so many mental health issues, so many re-entry program needs, so many rehabs that need to be done, we are turning and spending money in a way, in a direction, is not what made this town great. It's not what brought this city to be a head turner to anybody who ever mentioned it. I got off the crack. I'm gonna say this right here.
This city was built by your brothers and sisters, your cousins, hard-working white hands and black hands that did not get their fair share, who was not treated that right. You understand? Who had to learn to make bricks with no straw. But now we're dealing with a moral issue where now we think we have made this city great. It's shiny things. And that is what we grade in. What Martin Luther King said, when we grade ourselves by shiny things opposed to the human development, we have lost our way. I want to be careful right here. Because where are we going as a people on Martin Luther King? The displacement. Where are we going with the displacement in Adamsville, Cascade, Ben Hill, all segment, Bankhead, Martin, all over this city, you're seeing a displacement. We could very well have no displacement and develop this city. Somebody stood up here and said that, you know, Miss Winslow said it was the communities downtown who was a part of this process. Those are new gentrified communities to a great extent. Andrew Young said we need to develop the downtown housing where there was none. That is good. But it's wild and crazy to think that that community that come down where people caught the early morning bus, where people transferred on a system that they voted for and campaigned for, from houses in which was public housing to make public transportation. In this day and time, we turn the stadiums out of the public hands, and now we're building up little cities out of the public presence, taking away the public ownership with no ownership for the people in the projects. Don't let this be your mark of success. Don't let this be the point where you have to decide, you understand, what make our city great. Somebody said, is that all you want is a job? Is that all you want to do is make some money? Well, it's the north side of town. I call them the Buckhead 50. I don't know where they are today. I'm pretty sure some of them out here. But the fact is that they are concerned about the crime, about the inhumanity that would cause people to do certain things in this city that need resources that need to be addressed. We all need to be careful. I want to be careful here. I want to miss some things. We all have missed some things. But there was people who was brought in this city 8 years ago to do what's going on today. We know doggone well this wasn't a project that was that had resources of $400,000. This goes way back. It's people who brought in here as volunteers to move around this city and see what we can do with this city. And the Gulch had its eyes on it. And it's more than what is being spoke of. The fact is that we need to look at the opportunity to make this a city where people are safe. Make this a city where every child in the city of Atlanta have a good day in school. Make this a city where people have smiles and care and love for one another. Where we don't have children who look mean and disheveled. Why? Because they actually don't have a place to stay. Because their mother and father is doing a little better to make it down the road if they don't come home that night and maybe they stay in another place. They can stay in a vacant building. The fact is, I rode down Simpson Highway just the other day, and I see where half of Simpson right now is just laying in wait for new people to move in. Greedy people. This is a moral issue. And y'all want to make it look like Miss Winslow that we doing better because we had these big developments. No, it's some grandmamas and granddaddies who made this city, some aunts and uncles who we smiled at and sat on their laps and heard their voices and sung their songs and got ourselves in step. But now they don't have a home to go to. Now the public housing has been a center of crime. Well, no, the public housing was a center of protecting people and raising people up and bringing people together and built schools. And yeah, they produced doctors and lawyers and police chiefs too. The fact is, where's the heart of Atlanta now?
Can't trust this deal.
Excuse me, Alex Martin. Richard, is this on singer? Thank you. Sylvia W.
Affordable housing.
Sylvia.
Is Sylvia here? Okay, come on. Come right down, 2 minutes.
Yes. Have anybody ever played Monopoly? That's what's going on right now, people. Okay. We can build our own Gulch through our people. We have people that are going to have to take over when we leave. We have people, everyday people, not just somebody going to have to take over for everyone in here. So we have to build them up. Let's build some people. That space is there. It was brought to our attention that it can be used for something. But we can also use people. We were told that in 3 years, whatever they gave the people, whatever housing they gave them, that's it, 3 years out. We were also told that they're going to bring their own construction team in. They're not going to use us. They're going to use their own construction team. They said that the 425 million is still on the table. I heard them, they said today. What we can do, how much do we have to pay if we say no to this deal and just walk away? How much do we owe y'all? How much do we owe y'all if we say no and just walk away? How much? How much do we have to pay them? Because this is not a good deal. I mean, the golden rule. The one who has to go makes the rules. Who has to go? They're the ones who are going to make the rules. And China, they have the gold. They're the ones who are building the biggest billionaires. They're trying to buy China right now today. So they said they can sell it.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank y'all.
Columbus Ford.
They're going to sell the
Did you join it?
No, she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you came up?
Yes.
You already done it your time, I apologize.
Oh, she did.
No.
You wouldn't let me, so that's why I'm speaking.
Right.
What nothing was it?
Give it to me.
You had 8 minutes, that's how I got to 8.
Right, but she didn't, I didn't get it from her. I didn't give her 2 minutes.
Oh, she didn't want it. Go
Nope.
ahead. You were gonna. 2 minutes at our path, let's talk about it, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Kate Little. I do want to say that the need for affordable housing in Atlanta is really great, but it's great for people with incomes far below 80% of area median income. So the fact that this development provides twice as much as in the overlay district and the other inclusionary zoning ordinances, while it's laudable, it's really not sufficient. The fact that the inclusionary zoning did allow for 10% of the units to be reserved for persons at 60% of area median income actually gets closer to the need of affordable housing for citizens in Atlanta. There's a current deficit of 25,000 quality affordable homes for households with incomes at or below $34,000 or 50% of AMI. Almost 30% of Atlanta households have annual incomes below $34,000. 7 out of 10 Atlanta residents with household incomes at $24,000 or less, that's 30% of AMI, spend more than half of their income on housing. The other point, I haven't read the new agreement, I just read the old one, and this is a technicality, but in terms of being able to address affordability for persons at 30% of area median income, the language in the document said that the Atlanta Housing would provide vouchers to pay the difference between the rent at 30% of income and market rent. Actually, vouchers can be used to pay the difference between the rent the tenant can afford and fair market rent, which is not the same thing as market rent. And my last point is that 80% of area median income based on Atlanta Sandy Springs does really not apply to the city of Atlanta. Come on now.
Ain't nothing like the truth.
Joey Michael. Okay, Amber Connor. Yes,
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try to take a more inspirational approach this time. I'm going to be quoting from an article written by Jeff Morrison, a local architect. Atlanta is a city of transformation and rebirth. We need to scrap this plan and open up a bidding to our local developers. The Gulch is no longer an obstacle to be overcome. It is an opportunity to be embraced, a door to be opened. This is not a pothole to be filled with more concrete. The Gulch is a dry riverbed that can be nurtured back to life as a vital asset to the city. But if not as a river, then as what? We must come to know this as a place with history and memory and identity. It can only be brought back to life if we understand something about who we are and what makes us unique. Let's vote no. This area could be a neighborhood that reaches out to South Downtown, 5 Points, Castleberry Hill, Vine City, the stadiums, World Congress Center, GSU, Marietta Street, and the Government District. Imagine a community comprised of a diversity of people, jobs, and incomes, with buildings and with diversity of use, character, and ownership in scales both grand and human. Imagine a new passenger rail terminal, once again becoming a destination for thousands of daily commuters. It can be honest and inspiring, a generator of focus, a real place, and a community. Scrap the Gulch deal. Start over. Let's get creative, Atlanta. Just imagine it. Priorities are important. Let's prioritize. Red light the Gulch. And remember, we can open up the bidding, have all of our local developers come together. They each take a section, and they make it into something amazing that actually benefits all of Atlanta, and not just one company from California.
Let's see, Charles Payne.
Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Charles Payne. I am here on behalf of Historic Atlanta. There are a few parts of the deal that are of issue with us. One is 175 Spring Street. In this deal, it is to be demolished, yet it is from 1911, and it was the Kelly Brothers wholesale grocery store. In the 1920s, it got an addition on Spring Street. And when we were building the plan for the multimodal transit station, it was actually listed as eligible for the National Registry of Historic Places. In this deal, it has been said that it has asbestos, therefore it has to be demolished. And their arguments, they actually said that. So I'm not sure if they know you actually have to take asbestos out before you demolish the building. Also, the Nelson Street Viaduct is also eligible for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places. As an early use of concrete construction, we believe that $5 million should be spent, not on the replacement of a historic bridge, but instead to do a study on the integrity for it to be used as a pedestrian bridge and to repair it. Instead of demolishing a historic bridge that was already supposed to be maintained in perpetuity. Like this one is supposed to not be maintained in perpetuity. That's all I really have. But thank you all for all the time you all invested in this. It's time, I'm sure.
Thank you. Benson Ford, Senator Ford. Can you trust me? I'm sorry, did I miss you? Senator Ford, please just a second. I'm in.
Nathan Knight.
Your name is what?
Nathan Knight.
Okay, I think I called you. Come on up. And then we'll have Senator Ford.
Good afternoon, everyone. The gentleman speaking made mention of history. 1911 is a time frame that a building was erected that's subject to be destroyed. Well, let's go back to 110 years ago when African Americans and whites got together and they met at the old Butler Street YMCA to reconcile differences because of a race riot that took place in 1906. The significance of this: many of the business decisions and economic decisions that have been made were made in Atlanta based upon those agreements. If you want to know how you need to proceed, then go back and do a little historical reading and find out what was the edicts that came out of the 1908 reconciliation at the Butler Street YMCA between the African American community and the business community, who never wanted a situation to take place again whereby the city of Atlanta could not get funds to invest. So it was necessary for both sides to come together to seek understanding. Part of that understanding was that there would be a line that would draw from east to west, dividing north from south. And the Gulch, which has been in effect for 150 years, is part of the reason why it has not been developed. Understand that the businessmen of that day continue to live through the organizations that you speak of. Business investment opportunities, they're not necessarily negative, but they have not been positive for the development of the south side of Atlanta.
Thank you.
And this project stands in the way of what is necessary for growth and development for all people. And until it does that, there should not be a decision rendered unless all things that is necessary to protect all people are addressed. Thank you.
That's our last speaker, Senator Ford.
All right.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of Council, Madam President. I am committed to not to talk about technical details. Julian Benet and Professor Washington and Kate Little have mastery of the technical details that I could not approach. But there are a couple things before I talk about my main issues that I want to say. I've seen this one page of the Gulch, the facts, and Kate Little and Julie Benet have talked about the affordable housing piece. But there are two things that I do want to say about it. One, it's very ironic that this fact sheet says, well, we're doing better than the Beltline. That ain't hard. The Beltline is an abysmal failure as far as affordable housing is concerned. So is this Gulch deal. From what I can tell, the substance of the affordable housing, or I would say non-affordable housing plan in this deal, has not changed enough to make it credible. The other point I want to make is I'm very concerned about the status of HIV/AIDS housing and the role that will play in this development. The HIV/AIDS rate in a mile diameter around the Gulch is the highest in this country. No, it's not just the highest in the country. It rivals HIV/AIDS rates anywhere in the world, including sub-Saharan Africa. And I have talked to HIV/AIDS activists who are very concerned about that issue and how it relates to the Gulch. How can we in good conscience talk about the least of these and not deal with this issue, which is an issue that is, I bet those 250 homeless folk that live in the Gulch now, I'd like to find out what the HIV/AIDS rates are there. But I'm not going to dwell on the technical details. I've kind of over the last couple of months been able to figure out the culture of CIM. And I want to talk about the culture of CIM. We know that they are generally a lily white company. You know, when you go on their website, you don't see anything but white people. And they're going to do this development in this town, and we can trust them. We know that they are anti-neighborhood. They've broken promises to neighborhoods in Los Angeles on a regular basis. I will emphasize, they've been called the biggest slumlord in Los Angeles. They are business partners with the Trump-Kushner businesses. You know, my approach to that is the Jesse James factor. If you hang out with Jesse James, if you are partners with Jesse James, you must be a bank robber too.
All right.
I mean, something tells me that their relationships are suspect. But, you know, and I've been in contact with people in the labor movement around the country, and they have told me about CIM's labor or anti-labor practices. That's why, Councilmember Boone, I was very intrigued by your questions about a living wage. Let me tell you this. There's no state law that prevents prevailing wage, anti-prevailing wage law at the state aside. I've spoke against it, voted against it, fought against it every time I could. But at the same time, there is no law preventing the city and CIM negotiating a living wage for this Gulch development. Nothing. And so when I see these folk get up in front of you and have the temerity to tell you that's something that we really can't consider, I'm on the cusp of being outraged by it. In a city where income inequality is the greatest in the country, where a child born over at Grady Hospital this afternoon, the poor parents has a 4% chance of moving into the middle class, you get that kind of answer?
Tell it.
They answer you with a straight face, they can't do nothing about it? They ought to be run out of town. I really believe that.
In your heart.
You know, we're going to depend on the market. Look at where the market has gotten Atlanta. 1 out of every 4 people in the city, poor. And you're going to depend on CIM and this administration to tell you if it will work on it. You ought to demand an ironclad agreement on a prevailing wage in the Gulch for the construction and ongoing post-construction of living wage as a $15 minimum wage. But if anybody on this council is even considering voting for this, which I think is a bad idea, to vote for it or to think about voting for it without a commitment on wages, because you know that the city, there are positions in contract compliance this very hour. And you can talk to Councilmember Bozen, former Councilmember Bozen about this, about how wage theft happens in projects that the city is involved in. So, Councilmember Boone, thank you for bringing up that point. But don't accept the idea that we can't do anything about it. You can. But, you know, but this litany, this sad litany of how CIM treats neighborhoods and labor and all that, that's why this is the most appropriate sign that I've seen today. We can't trust this deal. And we sure enough can't trust CIM or an administration that is promoting it. I've been in touch, as I said, with labor folk around the country, and I've gotten a letter here. It's a very short letter, 2 paragraphs, it's a 2-paragraph letter from the bureau president in Manhattan, the Manhattan bureau president. And I'm going to read this letter. It is a very eye-opening letter from the Bureau President. He represents about 6 million people in the Bureau of Manhattan. And this is what he wrote about CIM, if I can find it.
You're fine.
I'm not the most technically literate person, so if you bear with me. This is what the Bureau President of Manhattan wrote on August 27th of this year. He's writing to CIM. He said, I'm writing with regard to CIM Group's upcoming project at 85J Street and potential other projects. I support development in our community that will be safe for workers and for the general public, and that will bring opportunities for constituents to earn family-sustaining wages and benefits. Major development like yours are a chance to create broadly shared prosperity in our communities. With this criteria for development in mind, I have serious, this is his words, not mine, I have serious concerns about your upcoming project. I have been disturbed to receive reports from constituents that your company intends to hire at least 3 contractors with troubling track records to this project. Between the 3 of these firms' records include 1, recent dangerous job site accidents, 2, a lawsuit brought by the New York State Attorney General alleging illegal dumping of construction waste at a public park, 3, a principal, check this out, a principal with a violent criminal history, and Councilmember Boone, wage theft, not paying working folk what they earn. These firms' records are particularly troubling to me in light of the recent indictment brought by the Manhattan DA against the contractor for millions of dollars in wage theft and fraud. The Parkside case provides ample evidence of the condition construction workers face when a developer, CIM, hires a low-road contractor. I urge CIM, a company that has responsibly developed complicated, high-profile projects in the past, to commit to using contractors on this project and all other projects that respect the law, build safely, and offer real career opportunities for workers. That's the CIM. That's the people we're going to partner with. That's the folk who, they're anti-neighborhood, anti-labor, anti-community, and if you look at the lily white nature of their company, anti-black, except for they got one person, one black person we know they like. That minority person that they're going to give a 10%, they're going to sell a 10% equity interest, who I understand, and I may be wrong, and I heard them say, well, we haven't selected that person. You doggone right you ain't selected them until they're selected. Now, I understand, and someone could call me a liar, that it's Grant Hill. You know? Grant Hill, basketball player. He works for the Hawks, for the other wrestling billionaire. So, why would we do this deal with these folks? It's a bad deal. And it's a bad deal for the technical reason, but it's a bad deal for moral reasons. Yeah, and you know, this is a company that has participated in wage theft. I have more details that I'll email to you about people dying on the job, falling. You know, one guy fell and got killed, and he had complained weeks before. He predicted his own death. He said, "This place is so bad, I don't think I'm gonna survive this thing." And guess what? He did it. He's dead. Dead and gone. These kind of folks you want to do a public-private partnership with? When the public got all the risk and they got all the profit? It's insane. It's the very definition of insanity. You know, one of my great heroes was FMA Matthews. How many of y'all know FMA Matthews? FMA Matthews is something else. And she used to sing this song, Time is winding up. Time, oh time is winding up. Why don't the people take a stand? Well, the time has come for you to take a stand. Fish or what, Madam President? Cut bait. Time to cut bait. Don't believe those talking points that come from the administration. Don't believe them. Some of those questions that were provided by the administration have been asked today. Don't believe them. Don't believe the hype. On Monday, the time has come. The city, after you vote on Monday, is going to be different, either for the good or for the bad. It's what, I'm a historian by training. It's what we call, as historians, a watershed moment. In a city with aggravated income inequality, with little black children, and their hopes and dreams are too often set aside for the hopes and dreams of greedy billionaires. In that kind of a city, you have a chance to say no, it ain't gonna happen anymore. That those people who shed their blood, sweat, and tears in the movement to make Atlanta the kind of city it is, that those people will no longer fight in vain so that other folk can gain and prosper while they, what? They lose out. One of the tragedies of the Olympics, and this is 20 years in retrospect, is that the people who fought in the streets to make the Olympics a fair deal, the working class people that stood on Billy Payne's lawn and protested Billy Payne at the Olympics, those people got left out. The folk who got the jobs and made the money, they're the ones that made out. The working people what? Got the shaft. Time, oh time is winding up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, if you're going to leave, please be quiet as we continue to call up this meeting.
Madam Chair, just think to end this, it would be helpful for me, I think, for the public and other council members. I just have one simple question, and that is, first to the administration and then to members that are here, are we prepared and ready to vote on the 5th so that people will know the go-forward plan from here, and if we are at that point? That is something I really would like to know. I'd like to start with the administration, and then hopefully council members can weigh in and say, look, well now, where we're going from here.
So is there anyone from the administration that will respond to that? Clyde.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Sean from Jack's Office of the Mayor. That is certainly our desired plan, Madam President.
And so that's the desired plan, I'm not sure it's desired plan, but okay, of the administration to do it on the, I'm just wondering if the council members, if there's a necessary or need to have additional discussions for the 5th. Are they, the council sufficiently have their question answered and ready?
Ms. Winslow, your hand up to answer?
She was asking a question, so that was appropriate to be recognized.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm one of the 3 authors on the paper, so I am ready to move forward.
Probably too late.
I'm ready to move forward.
On the 5th?
I was not trying to delay this process. I thought it was important to allow council to ask any questions as was necessary. So each time that I came to the Community Development Human Services Committee, I stood in the background and just listened and did not push it either way, but listened to the public when they came to speak, and very respectfully I did that, and I listened to my colleagues very respectfully in regard to, the residents of everything that we've been talking about. And so this has also been a learning process for me, so I'm glad that At each interval, I had an opportunity to sit with the 6 independent financial consultants that came from various cities. I think that was Goldman Sachs, Hilltop, and
Unicap.
and yes, thank you, Unicap that came to speak to us several council meetings ago. I know that many council people were not able to come because of their schedules, but it was very insightful for me to understand the fact that these are people that do deals all over the, not do deals, but they analyze deals with other cities. And so they analyzed the Atlantic Station deal, and they just talked about different cities that they worked in, just a few cities that they worked in. But I was very impressed with that and appreciated the administration allowing, and that's done with all deals, so it's not, it wasn't just this deal, it's done with other deals. But I don't think we had the look-see into that. And so that was very instructive and very interesting to me. And we had an opportunity to meet with the president of the CIM group, because there was a council person that said, well, the vice presidents are here, but we want to meet with the top person. So that person came into town. So I think there have been a lot of transparency, much more with this project than anything I've seen in my 25 years of being here on council. So I'm ready to move on. I know that was a long yes.
Anyone else, anything else we need to discuss? If not, guess what? It's 3 o'clock. We are adjourned. Thank you.